Hi everyone. So today I wanted to come on here to talk about adult children of EIP, so emotionally immature parents, NPD, and BPD. So first off, I just wanted to share that this isn't something about blaming others, blaming our caretakers or our parents even. It's about true, genuine healing, because the truth is, if you don't allow yourself to be witnessed, to be felt, to be held by yourself or even by community, then it will be very difficult to truly go into deeper healing. And when we can't go into that deeper healing, it's very difficult to expand and really step into our life purpose and whatnot. So it's like really about facing, those fears and those upsets head on. So I just wanted to start with that. This isn't about blaming. At the bigger, not the bigger, like the overarching thing is that essentially you have a child, a parent who is essentially their inner child is running the show, right? So the parent faced a lot of abuse or unmet needs, and then they didn't have the opportunity to heal that, which honestly makes sense, right? Like with our history, it was just like they jumped right into like having kids and we're survival based and whatnot, and then probably overwhelmed by the fact of having kids, and then there they go projecting a lot of their pain onto people. So a lot of us who are Pluto and Scorpio generation are here to heal these cycles. So I just wanted to start with that because my goal is not to come on here and rage and to blame. It's more about really making sure that you are holding space for yourself and validating your story. Even if the higher purpose doesn't come until later on, that's completely valid. You don't have to find gratitude or see the wins of having grown up in a difficult environment right away. That just naturally comes as you go into deeper healing and as you address deeper layers. So personally, I've gone into deeper layers myself, and I am so grateful. I know I shared this a lot about the Kundalini awakening and the Kundalini activation work, because it has taken me into much deeper depths within myself. And then the journey itself guides you to things that are going to help you even go deeper within yourself or expand more in your purpose, whatever it is. You're always guided, right? So anyhow, that's what I wanted to start with. So with that said, that caveat, it's really important that these adult children really learn how to reclaim their autonomy, reclaim their sense of agency, reclaim their energy, their body, all of that autonomy and that authenticity, reclaim their voice. Because if you grew up in these environments, most likely everything was not about you. It was actually about them, their insecurities, their emotions, everything. So you learned how to essentially walk around eggshells, or you learned how to tiptoe, or you learned how to people please. You learned most likely a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms or survival mechanisms, defense mechanisms that are no longer serving you, and they will continue to wreak havoc in our relationships, our just different areas of our lives, until we truly go inwards and face and heal these things. So it's really important that we also, there's something that Don Miguel Ruiz Jr. shared in his book, which I loved, and it's just coming up right now. He talks about domestication, and then he talks about self-domestication, and he talks about how humans are the only species where we actually inflict pain on ourselves. So say, for example, you had a narcissistic parent, and then you were the child, and obviously there's not much, you were in that environment, there's nothing you could do, but then you're able to leave that environment, and then guess who's being now kind of the quote-unquote narcissist? Most likely you to yourself, without even realizing it. And then what's happening is that in the real world, you start to attract maybe avoidant partners, because when you were a child, nobody was able to meet your needs, so now you're used to that cycle. So you're not just attracting, but kind of engaging or allowing that in, because someone with a secure attachment won't really when you really go into that depth of loving yourself, you kind of start to oh, I can have compassion, but that's not for me, or I'm not going to allow that in because I love myself and I choose myself. I know that I'm worthy of more than breadcrumbs, right? But someone who grew up in that environment, who hasn't fully or gone into deeper healing with these, just attracts and kind of allows those people to hang around, and then also the narcissist, right? And what I think is a trap is when we start to blame these people and we get so upset. Oh, that narcissist. Oh, why do I keep attracting all these narcissists and all these avoidance and all these XYZ? Not realizing, now I'm going to go to the spiritual perspective, that the higher lesson and perspective is that they're teaching you, although not in a very fun way, how to love yourself. Because when you come back home to yourself, when you truly heal those wounds, when you stop being the narcissist to yourself, when you allow yourself to feel your emotions, to be fully witnessed, held, and yeah, just be your authentic self, you're not going to put up with that shit. You're just going to be like, oh, I can see that, and that is not for me, you know? And that doesn't mean we don't have compassion for these people. It means we have compassion, and then they're on their journey, and, you know, and we're choosing ourselves. So it's very important that we not fall into this trap of blaming the external. That doesn't mean you need to blame yourself either. It's about curiosity, really becoming curious about where you are on your journey, what's coming up for you, and then going inwards, because everything is information. And that's what I absolutely adore about this Kundalini awakening journey, is that yes, sometimes it can be a little deep, and sometimes it's amazing with all when we have a big breakthrough and all this opportunities and expansion happens. But what also happens is we start to develop some maturity and go more into a space of curiosity and compassion. And that's not just towards others. We're empaths, love to, sorry, someone called, you know, share our love for others. It's about extending that to yourself. And yeah, people who are used to a cycle of where like it was always about them are gonna get upset that you're choosing and loving yourself, and then are gonna even maybe blame you, like, oh, you've changed, or you're this or you're that. No, you're just learning how to really love yourself, and the people that are on that journey or that get it are going to meet you there. So a huge thing is to really, it is an inward journey. That doesn't mean we need to shut out the external world. Yes, there are moments where we kind of go inwards and we, like, you know, hibernate or whatever, we cocoon. But that's why interdependence is a beautiful thing, right? But that it comes a lot with really becoming curious with ourselves and seeing what it is, the next layer we need to heal. Another thing is that I wanted to share, it is extremely important, because what I've noticed a pattern is just like, oh my God, this is like happening, you know, with other families and whatnot, is like that you really need to break free from that toxic environment. You cannot heal into this beautiful, I don't know, tree, flower, blossom if something keeps like squishing you and raining on your parade, if there's constantly poison around you. And again, this isn't to like make them like this horrible thing, but I mean, that's the truth. You know, when we are acting from pain, we're projecting out poison, right? And no one's, how do you call it, no one's like squeaky clean, shiny clean. You know, I've had my shadows and stuff, and I've had to work through them, but there's a difference between coming into that space, that awakening, and being like, oh, okay, this is where that's coming from, let me go inwards and heal that, because I don't want to do that anymore, or I don't want to pass this on. That takes a lot of radical honesty, and honestly courage, because sometimes people like to enjoy being in the blame game and in the victim mode, and because that's what they're used to, or maybe they're getting that validation that they feel they never had. But the thing is that it's never going to be enough. It will never be enough. I'm telling you now, because I see that a lot of people are constantly trying to seek this external validation on a subconscious level. I was as well, you know, because when you grow up in these environments, you are emotionally starved, right? So you grow up and subconsciously you're like, oh, you know, if I chase this career, if I have the partner, if I do this, or, you know, you're seeking this validation, if I get these compliments, if someone else tells me I look nice, if this, rather than just being like, no, I am whole within myself. I truly am going to validate every part of myself, even the parts that feel ashamed or that were shunned or whatnot, and really bringing light into those areas. So that, yes, absolutely, when people compliment us, or when we have nice things, it's nice to enjoy, but it's not like you're, how do you call it, depending on that. It's not like you're needing that as a form of like, you know, for yourself to feel good about yourself. It's just like, oh, wow, thank you so much. You know, like you're noticing, you know, that all this beautiful stuff coming in, but yeah, you're not depending on it. You know that if you have a horrible day, that you're just as fucking amazing as you were 2 days ago. You know what I'm saying? So like, it's really important that yeah, that these adult children of people that grew up in these environments really do break free from these toxic environments so that you can heal, so that you can grow. And it's unfortunate, and one of my go-to's, or I've had to, luckily I feel like I've been pretty, like, I catch things and I set boundaries, or I heal, or I learn from it, but I sometimes would feel a lot of, I used to have my own upsets, with my siblings. I felt abandoned and whatnot because I felt like I was left behind with my one parent who was very controlling, all this stuff, right? But then that transition as I went into deeper healing, and then it turned into this huge compassion, but almost this rescuer energy, and like this upset of like, man, I wish, if I've done so much work and I'm still healing deeper stuff, like to them who have not maybe gone into deeper healing or allowed themselves to be in those spaces, like I can only imagine what a living hell it is, and I have a lot of compassion, and it would see, like, makes me emotional. But then I had to let go, like, this is not, we all have connection to source, we all have God, we all have our awakening journeys, we all chose what paths to walk, and some of us are gonna, really walk through the fire and the beauty, all of it, in this lifetime, and some may have to do so in the next lifetime, and that's okay, because we chose our lessons, we chose what we're working through. Maybe we were there in, a few past lives, whatever it is, so, like, really, you can have compassion and empathy without trying to rescue someone, right? Because then you're also, again, feeling that narrative, right? If you grew up in these environments, you have to be able to recognize. I feel like I'm really good with pattern recognition, right? So one of the pros of growing up in one of those environments, right, is like we are like a walking BS detector, pattern recognition, all this stuff. But we have to be able to recognize, like, oh wait, am I falling in that pattern? Am I falling in this pattern where I'm trying to watch their emotional needs, trying to be responsible for how they feel, trying to save, trying to rescue, right? That's not a healer, right? That's not something to be proud of, because first of all, you're not God, you're not source. Sources are ultimate, right? When we're able to come back home to ourselves, and when we are in the healing arts, we're able to really hold space and compassion for people, and share some insight, share a little bit of that higher perspective, that wisdom, like exactly what they need in that moment, and they're able to hold on to it, and it resonates for them. But ultimately, they're going through their internal process, right? You're not there to like micromanage and all that, like, what the heck, like, that's their journey, like, how dare you, that's their sacred journey. So anyhow, it's really important that we, like, really undergo our own process and reclaim all parts of ourselves. And yeah, like, you're probably still gonna freaking upset them and disappoint them even as an adult, and it's like, and so what? That's part of the journey. Like, I don't know how many times my mom has been oh man, I said which parent, wasn't going to, but like, I don't know how many times I have upset my parent, because of my choices, because of wanting to leave the house at 21. It's really, like, I mean, it's so important to get out in this environment. I left when I was 21, and I actually wanted to leave before then. At 7 years old, I didn't even want to exist. By a teenager, I was like, I remember being in the car and saying, like, oh, I really want to get my own apartment, leave this place. And, that parent was really upset and was like, don't you ever say something like that again. What a stupid idea. Like, completely shut it down, right? But luckily, there's that fire. You do build a resilience in these environments. I will say that. There was that fire inside of me that, like, fuck that, like, no, I do deserve this. Of course, there was like that back and forth, the guilt and whatnot that ends up, happening when you're in those environments. But, I left at 21, and it was like the best decision I could have made. I went to law school, and from there, I mean, it's been quite the journey. But it really is important, because you can't, like, even when you try to heal, or you try to explain, or you try to have compassion, like, it just doesn't work. It's a freaking wall. It's a brick wall. You know what I'm saying? So the best thing you can do is you set those boundaries. You love yourself. You keep living your life on purpose, on your terms. And if they meet you there, if they're gonna be able to support you while you're on that journey, okay, great. And if not, well, then okay, great, you're living your life, right? So you need to not be afraid of these things. You need to not be afraid of the abandonment, right? Like, you've already been emotionally abandoned, right? Okay, what else? How worse could it get? So you have to really honor yourself and come back into your body. And that's what, with the Kundalini activation work, that's what it helps you do. It helps you be in your body. This is not, and I love combining things. I love meditating as well, but sometimes my body is like, no, I can't even meditate right now, you know? So, like, being in your body is so crucial. And the Kundalini activation work helps you move that energy. So, before starting this work, when I did have upsets, I would kind of like cycle, you know, like sure, I would get into my purpose like in the external world, but internally it was kind of like chaos because it didn't have a channel to move through. And sure, like exercise did work and whatnot, but like it still didn't have a full channel to move through and for me to be able to grasp onto that higher awareness. Kundalini activation work helps you move that energy. Are you still going to have feelings and process and upset? Yeah, of course, because your body's trying to discharge and release this. But you also start to rewire that brain. Sometimes people feel like the tingling sensations. Yeah, that's your like brain neurons all connecting and whatnot. To be able to have that higher perspective, the somatic releases, that's the trauma and the tension releasing from your physical body, because the physical body remembers, you know, even before our minds do, you know. And the emotional somatic releases, that's again the healing and the processing. So we're moving the energy, and even if someone physically doesn't show any of these things, they can feel the energy flowing and moving through them. So this is why I love this work so much. And like I mentioned, what it does, it also opens the doors for you to be like, okay, what am I being called into? And people step further into their purpose. People go a deeper dive into shadow work, whatever you're being called into, and then you just honor that. So anyhow, I just really wanted to share that because I feel like it's so important, and I feel like there's actually a lot of adults right now who are realizing, because I feel like astrologically and with the world, it's like pushing people into their depths, you know, like, are you gonna face this, are you gonna face this, you know? So yes, we do get to absolutely experience joy and, you know, love and all these things, but like grief and joy are opposite sides of the same coin. We cannot experience full like joy if we don't allow ourselves to process the grief, right? And I think I'm going to do a separate video on grief, but yeah, it's really important that we honor all parts of ourselves and not try to just like reach a high, not just to feel good, not just to, and that tends to happen as a form of, it's also a survival mechanism. So anyhow, I just wanted to share that. I hope this was helpful to someone. If you would like support, you know, with the Kundalini work and whatnot, definitely don't hesitate to reach out. Just a reminder, I'm not like a full-on degree like therapist and whatnot. This is just more sharing from my own personal experiences, from my wisdom, things that have come online as I'm doing all my deeper healing work, as I've worked with clients throughout the years. So always here just to be of compassionate space holder for you guys to continue to evolve, similar as I'm evolving into my highest timeline. So anyhow, you are worthy of love. You are worthy of being loved now, in this moment, and in every moment. Hope you guys have a good week.